Thank you. So good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're very pleased to be with all of you to discuss a topic that's been gaining a lot of momentum these past couple of years, namely how to assess the alignment of a counterpart that an financial institution has been working with. So we're very happy to have you here today to talk about that. I'm Claire Echalier, the new head of Secretariat of the mainstreaming climate in financial institutions. Sorry. I'm joined here by Alice and Sarah, also representing the Secretariat, and we'll be having two separate panels today. So a first panel with international financial institutions that is sitting right next to me, and I'll be introducing them in a minute. And then later on we'll have a second panel with national development banks who'll be joining us too. So Alice, just checking, can we move on? Yes. Yeah, all right. Thank you. So we're going to start. We're quite short in time because we've got a lot of interesting panelists with us today. So we're going to move on quite quickly, and I'm going to start with a presentation that Alice is going to make of. Are they not the right slides? Yes. Of the recent research work that she's been conducting on how to assess the alignment of counterparts and financial institutions in particular, and how to accompany them in their journey towards climate alignment. So Alice, I'll leave the floor over to you. Sorry, hope that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. I'm very pleased to be here to present some of the initial research outcomes of a research project that we are currently conducting together with New Climate Institute and with the financial support of the European Climate Foundation. Apologies. Sorry. So this research project actually built on a research paper that was released last year by the consortium made of New Climate Institute, German Watch, and the World Resources Institute. And they developed all together an assessment framework for the alignment of international finance institutions alignment with the Paris Agreement objectives, which relied on both criteria for adaptation, for mitigation, but also looked at the governance of financial institutions as well as their transparency frameworks. And today, this research project built on this proposed approach for the alignment of financial intermediaries and propose to do a benchmark of what international finance institutions are currently developing in terms of approaches for the alignment of their financial intermediaries, and to develop guiding principles about how to also implement these approaches concretely and how to start this engagement process with financial intermediaries and build their capacity. So the alignment journey of international finance institutions has started by looking at direct operations, ensuring that the direct operations of international finance institutions do no harm across all of their direct operations, but also as much as possible support climate consistent co-benefits consistent with the Paris Agreement objectives and foster transformative outcomes. And now, international finance institutions are looking at indirect operations, so looking at these intermediated operations, and also looking not only at the sub-projects, but looking very much also at the counterparties and whether the counterparties are aligned and on a pathway towards the Paris Agreement objectives. And by doing that, international finance institutions very much also have the possibility not only to ensure that their operations are aligned, but also have the possibility to have a transformative impact and really contribute to the transformation of the financial sector locally. International finance institutions have started to engage with their financial intermediaries on climate change for quite some time right now, and they're very much focused on the climate opportunities. trying to help them develop green credit lines and to also, for some of them, issue green bonds. I don't know if you can still hear me. I'm not so sure. Yeah. And this is actually a priority. We need to switch microphones, actually. So, yeah, thank you. So fostering the contribution of financial intermediaries for climate change mitigation and adaptation has been a priority of international finance institutions until now, and this actually should remain a priority for them, as it is much easier for international finance institutions, and they have the possibility as well to accompany their financial intermediaries in this journey. However, a new area of work for them is also to accompany their financial intermediaries in doing no harm. And a number of them have actually started to introduce new due diligence processes together with risk management due diligences. We have noted that a number of them are actually right now introducing more general and overarching climate due diligences, gathering both ESG considerations, climate risk management considerations, as well as Paris alignment considerations. And one of our key recommendations, also very much building on what the MDBs just released this afternoon, is that international finance institutions, MDBs, and other bilaterals really need to work together on these due diligence processes and need to coordinate to make sure that their due diligences go in the same direction and do not contradict each other. On our end, we also provide some recommendations around the content of these due diligences. First, these due diligences need to include a quantitative part, looking at the portfolio of their international finance of their intermediated finance clients. But they also need to look as well at the institution capacity, policies, and strategy through a qualitative assessment, and looking at that now, looking at their capacity right now, but also looking at the ambition of the financial institution moving forward, and here adopting a context-based approach to really assess the level of ambition of the institution compared with the ambition of the country, with the regulatory context, and also comparing with peers, with peer financial institutions in the country. But we have to note that international finance institutions are facing a number of constraints. First, it is important to note that many financial institutions in developing countries are at the early stages of this Paris alignment journey. Second, the access to data is also difficult, especially on financial intermediaries' portfolio. Third, there is still no clear understanding of countries' pathways for low GHG and climate resilient development. This is a point that was also highlighted this morning by the MDBs. And finally, while a number of regulators across the world are now integrating climate risk assessment in their regulations, Paris alignment considerations are still far from being integrated in national financial regulations in developing countries. So, to align the financial intermediaries, IFIs actually need to support the consistency of the broader economic and financial system. And IFIs are actually well placed to create enabling conditions for financial intermediaries to align. Indeed, they have the possibility to offer capacity building for their financial intermediaries. They can also engage with national governments in the definition of pathway towards a low carbon and climate resilient development. And finally, they can also engage with regulators and supervisors to develop regulatory frameworks that will foster an orderly transition. However, to do that, they also need the resources and the mandate to engage in these different areas of work at the scale that is needed. So, as we have today a panel that will be made of international finance institutions and their clients, I will just make a zoom on the capacity building issue. So capacity building capacity building can take very different forms, and we can expect international finance institutions to first raise the awareness of their financial intermediaries on Paris alignment, starting by leading by example and adopting really exemplary approaches within their own operations, within their own institution, and sharing their experience and raising the awareness of both top management as well as operational teams of their financial intermediaries. But also they have the possibility very often to create generic capacity building programs for the implementation of specific tools, approaches, and methodologies. This is the case, for example, of AFD, who has just released today a MOOC on climate risk management for their financial intermediaries. And they also have another option that is very desirable, which is a tailored technical assistance offer. That would be ideal, but that is currently limited in terms of financial and human resources within international finance institutions. So, as this capacity is limited today, one of our recommendations is to make sure that it really goes where it would be the most transformational, and as such that it is offered to institutions that are committed to advance on climate change, but also tailored to the institution's needs and really developed in line with the institution's climate strategies, objectives, and targets. And that it is also relying on clear and concrete objectives that are included in the contract obligation and closely monitored. And finally, I will just stop with one key final remark around the need to really put this question of the resources that are allocated to capacity building at the core of current discussions on the reform of international finance institutions. Indeed, increasing the amount of technical assistance operations will be necessary if we want to have an impact at scale and if we want to have this transformational impact of financial sectors. Several options could be considered for that. This includes, for example, increasing the share of international finance institutions' climate technical assistance or providing additional financial resources from international climate funds such as the GCF. So we'll stop there, and I look forward for the discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alice. I think that set the scene really, really well, and yeah, I think it's a very good introduction to the discussion we're going to have right now, where we'll see how this works in practice and illustrate everything you've just been saying. So I'm very happy to be, no, Marine, don't leave, to be welcoming our three panelists from international financial institutions today. So I was going to start taking it this way, so I sort of changed my order there, but that's fine. I'm going to start with Elina, who's to my left. Elina Kamenitsa, sorry if I mispronounce that, I hope that's okay. You're Department Director for Operations Support and Climate Operations Director at the European Investment Bank. Then we'll be hearing from Peter Heligas, who's Director of the Climate and Energy Competence Center for KfW, the German Development Bank. And then we'll have another European institution with Marine Lagarde, who's Senior Operations Lead and Climate Focal Point, at, for the Financial Systems Division of the French Development Agency, AFD. So when we prepared this side event, we identified two key questions which we'd like to hear from you about. So we'll start off with the first question. I think we'll hear all of you on the first question, and then we'll move to the second one. So the first question we wanted to ask you was, we wanted you to tell us a little bit more about your views and what you do in terms of alignment when you need to assess and to accompany your counterparts with Paris alignment. So if that's okay, Elina, I'll start off with you because you're the closest to me. Thank you. Floor is yours.
Do you want me to stand up or
You
sit
can
down?
do whatever, sorry.
Okay.
I've been standing up, so whatever.
I need this one, yes. Hold on. Let's get... Okay, well, that was not great. Oh,
Sorry, actually.
all right.
Sorry, in fact, we have to start with Marine, I think, because the
Oh,
slides are in
okay.
that order. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Is that okay? Marine, if you could stop. Sorry, I forgot that the slides were... All right. Yeah, that's why. Sorry for that. So hi everyone, and thank you for joining this event. For us, it's very important that it's happening now because at AFD we just released the position paper 2 days ago to present our new methodology for assessing Paris alignment in our intermediated financial operations. I say methodology for assessment, but in this position paper we are also presenting more broadly our philosophy for Paris alignment of financial intermediaries that for us goes together with, as Alice mentioned, the role that we play as a development partner and thus our commitment to support our clients in their journeys towards mainstreaming climate in their institutions. So that's why we have that figure here that presents the way that our Paris alignment methodologies and processes at AFD relies both on what we call here Paris alignment intervention criteria. So that's where we would find our selectivity measures, exclusion lists, everything that we do not want to finance, etc. Let's say a do no harm approach. And on the other side, we have what we call here Paris alignment impact research, let's say, where we try to leverage our funding in order to look for more impact than the one we can expect from the sole use of our funds. So say, for instance, when we work with a financial institutions, even through a green credit line where we provide 100 million credit facility to a development bank in a specific country to fund their new green portfolio, we can whether choose to get the 100 million euro impact, or we can choose to make a bet on our clients and try to leverage this partnership to look for more impact at the institution level, because the development banks with which we are working of financing billions of euro of like much needed investment for the transition. So that's the impact part of our methodology. And in this position paper that I just mentioned, we are describing how we now commit to evolve from Paris alignment methodology that was mainly relying on project assessment, meaning that I won't go into details into that because my colleagues from Poparco also described just before what we did. They made a good introduction. So for operation with FIs, it was mainly based on an analysis of the use of proceeds of our credit facilities with FIs. But we know that these approaches can be limited for several reasons. And that's why now we are moving to a twofold approach with an additional counterparty level Paris assessments, where we will assess the practices at the FI level. I will go into more details just after on the main principles behind this assessment and why we are doing this. We started doing this for our what we call non-earmarked credit facility, where tracking the use of proceeds is harder or almost impossible. And thus we found that our project-based assessment was limited. And by piloting this approach, we made the statement that it was also a powerful tool, this Paris alignment assessment, to look for more impact with our clients. So if I describe in a few words our approach for counterparty assessment, alignment assessment, it would rely on three main principles. I think it's quite aligned with what Alice mentioned and the recommendations made by I4CE. So we chose to have a methodology that would be performance-based and thus quantitative. For this, we would rely on a portfolio analysis of the share of emissive sectors in a financial institution loan book. We know that there are a lot of constraints and limitations, and Alice mentioned some of these, but we still think that it's very crucial to look at quantitative data. The methodology would also be forward-looking, meaning that we would also try to be qualitative and assess the FI's climate policies, strategies, commitments, governance, their practices in terms of accountability, etc. And for this, the idea, we have started to develop tools internally to do so. And the idea would be to try and harmonize as much as possible with existing standards, like the TCFD recommendations, for instance, but also all the work that has been done by many of the institutions here in the framework of the mainstreaming initiative, for instance. And here we mentioned our due diligence questionnaire that we have started to develop, and for us it will be combined with our environmental and social questionnaire that is already existing, because we also want to embed as much as possible these new processes in our existing ones to facilitate our life as operational, but also our clients' life, because it's also additional work on their side. And of course, as Alice mentioned before, it would be context-specific, taking into consideration the FI's capacities, the context in which they intervene, etc. And after making this assessment, the output that we look for is to be able to support the financial institutions in the definition and then implementation of a transition plan that could be embedded in our contractual arrangements, like we did in the past for the environmental and social management system. And we are also, I say in the past, but for some of our clients, we are still at this stage. So of course, something that was important for us to underline here as well is that there won't be one recipe. So we will have to adopt tailor-made transition plans with our counterparts. And it's important to take into consideration that those processes are taking much time, and that's where we think we can bring also our technical assistance. And last but not least, and that's why we're here as well today, at AFD we would like to also call to pursue the discussion after COP27 with other DFIs and other international financial institutions, but also with civil society organizations, think tanks and other initiatives in order to try and harmonize those methodologies, again, for the sake of our clients' life. I will stop just in a minute, sorry, to remind the main timeline for our commitment. So here we are at COP27. We just published our position paper. We will pilot this new methodology starting from 2023 with our new operations with FIs. And the objective is that at the end of 2025, all of our new operations with FIs are covered with this methodology, and that we reach this objective. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Marine. Well, I'll pass the mic over directly to you, Peter, because I believe you're coming up next, and I'm sure. Pardon? I'll just try and make sure, but I believe. Is that you? Great. So yeah, I'll pass it over to you, and you can definitely compliment what Marine just said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter Heliges, KfW. I believe what I'm going to present to you is a little different, yeah, from what you just saw about AFD, so it's going to be interesting, I hope. Let's see. Yes. So actually our approach to Paris alignment of client financial institutions is coming from our own experience that we've gone through over the past 4 years in aligning ourselves. Yeah, so this first slide shows you something about what we have developed over the past years and are now implementing in KfW to actually do Paris alignment for KfW group operations. I'm not going into this because you've heard probably lots of these things about ESG, about Paris compatibility 1.5 degrees, and EU taxonomy is also part of it, which is a pretty complicated subject. So we thought we work with a lot of FIs in our partner countries, and we have established relationships, and in some of these FIs we are working on ESMS and other systems, so we are trying to cooperate on improving structures and processes in our partner institutions. And so we thought, why don't we add Paris alignment? Yeah, it's another framework, it's another expectation. It will have its quality criteria, it will have benchmarks and stuff like that. But what we believe, it's at this point in time, it's time to do a trial and error. Yeah, because I think all of us are still learning. And this is true for KfW, as I said in the beginning, and I believe it's also true for many of our partner institutions. So let's learn together. Yeah, so what we set up, and we have a process in KfW in the development bank, which we call climate mainstreaming, which means that each and every transaction that we are doing has to undergo a climate screening process. Yeah, it's pretty structured in order to ensure that any transaction is Paris compatible. So it's about direct transactions. And so we added to this process another process which we now want to apply to work on analyzing FIs in terms of their Paris alignment. So it's part of a process that we already have. Important to us is, if you see the headlines, voluntary. Yeah, so we don't want to force anyone to do it. Yeah, it should be partner driven. We don't put a conditionality. Yeah, it's an offer that we make. Yeah, because we have to invest resources to do it, and our partner has to invest resources, and so we believe it should be voluntary. We can offer assistance. Yeah, I'm going to talk about it in a minute. And we think it's good to start with a few pilots. So we have a few partner institutions. Two of them are mentioned here, DBSA and IDC in South Africa, who are engaging with us in this process. So in the project cycle of financial cooperation, what would it mean? We have a questionnaire that we developed that a client can use, fill in, and see where do we see strengths and weaknesses. So it's it's qualitative basically. Then we have a due diligence guide, which we can use in order to analyze our partner, and then we see what's the outcome. Yeah, and we discuss, and we hope to discuss with our partners where do we want to go together. And if we find agreement and the partner says, yes, we want to do step 1, 2, 3 towards Paris aligning ourselves, and we can seek funding from our Ministry of Development Cooperation in order to actually support this. So we don't have a dedicated fund set up, but we always have the option, which we use today for other purposes as well, to mobilize funding for capacity development, consultancy services, these kind of things. So I think I shouldn't go through all of this, it's too much, but this is basically, say, the analysis criteria that we want to use, and that we are now using with our initial pilot partners. And you see on the left side the topics, you see on the right side some of the subtopics, so about greenhouse gases, about risk management, about TCFD and stuff like that. And all of this is put into a system, and this is where we are today. Let me make a final comment, which is not on KfW, because who was saying, I think Alice was talking about MDBs and your publication today or announcement today about this, and the call for harmonization. I don't think that's where we are today. Yeah, so to me, it's a search process, and it's something where everyone should start taking off, learning, and then we at some point might harmonize, but I think it's too early.
Great. So, last but not hopefully least, I'm here today to present EIB's approach to Paris alignment. In the next 5 minutes, I will first try to provide a bit of context to our Paris alignment ambition. I will then move on to highlighting some of the principles we are applying when we assess and engage with our counterparties on Paris principles. And I will then finish with some key information on the approach we have taken with financial institutions in particular. And then hopefully we can have a discussion later on the topic. So moving to provide you a bit of context. In 2019, the EIB group decided to become the EU Climate Bank, and we made certain operational commitments to guide our transition at the time. So one of them was that we will stop financing traditional fossil fuel energy projects. Climate action and environmental sustainability financing should increase up to and beyond 50% from our annual lending volume by 2025. We also pledged that EIB Group will endeavor to support green investment worth of 1 trillion euros over the critical decade until 2030. And importantly, we also announced that we will align all our operations with the goals of the Paris Agreement from the start of 2021. So that's kind of gives you the background and the context for our work on Paris alignment. In 2020, we worked on so-called Climate Bank Roadmap. It's a guidebook, if you may, or a playbook to give a direction of travel and framework for our climate bank transition over the next 5 years until the end of 2025. It sets the policy frame for the transition, including the criteria and the framework how we assess Paris alignment at the investment and project level, including also the intermediated lending. Importantly, the roadmap made a commitment that we will develop also an approach how we engage on Paris alignment with our counterparties. And in last year, in COP, we published our so-called path framework. That is the guidebook for us to assess and engage on Paris alignment with high emitting sectors and the financial institutions in scope of the path. And the path framework, here some of the key elements and highlights. First of all, it centers on the concept of low carbon resilient pathway towards Paris alignment. So that is at the core of the methodology, if you may. It applies to our counterparts inside and outside the Union. As you may know, our activities are 90% focused on the European Union, but we also act globally, and we apply the same principles universally to our operations currently. We are scoping in the high-emitting sectors, as well as significant financial institutions and counterparties with high vulnerability to climate change. So we have built in the resilience component also into the path framework. And I think it's important to highlight that it's not a framework that excludes, but builds on engagements and support to the willing. We are emphasizing in the pathway framework transparency and disclosure. And here we are taking inspiration, if you may, on the evolving EU regulation, notably the forthcoming CSRD, and also from the global initiatives that entail principles for harmonizing sustainability reporting. So they're the highlights. As for the financial institutions, there would be much more to say, but here the key takeaways. Unlike with the corporates, where we actually ask the corporates in scope to produce decarbonization plans with medium-term targets and elaborations on the long-term net zero pathways. As for the financial institutions, we are centering on the concept of transparency. We are obligating our counterparts to produce TCFD disclosure compliant reporting. And while we are aware, we know that in the EU, the regulatory framework already pushes our counterparts to this direction. Outside the Union, this is still a challenge. And here we spoke a lot about, people have mentioned, and my fellow panelists mentioned the technical assistance. We are ramping up our support to partner institutions, indeed to engage with the TCFD principles and the transparency and reporting requirements. I think it's also important to say that we do due diligence. We assess our counterparties' readiness to align with Paris, and also we assess their climate risk policies and transparency, as well as transparency policies and processes to manage climate risk at their counterpart level. And finally, we are exchanging best practice and engaging in dialogue with the national promotional banks on a Paris alignment. And I will actually stop there and hand over back to our moderator.
Thank you very much, Alina. I think these three presentations, I'm sorry for the funny noise that we're hearing on the side there. I think these three presentations complemented each other really well. And as you said, Peter, still learning, and everyone, we can see that every one of you has their individual journey. Yeah. Sorry. Is that better? Yes. So we had a second question for the three of you. Maybe if you could keep it, I'm sorry, a little bit shorter so that we can have time for the national development banks afterwards. So maybe 4 minutes instead of 5 would be excellent. We wanted to know, and actually I think we touched on some of it, and it will also make a great transition to the next part. But we wanted to know, in your view, what would be the best way to incentivize your counterparts on taking the first steps towards this alignment journey. So I'll start, yes, the slides again, I guess, right? So I'm not sure on this. I'll start with you, Marine, anyway.
It's all right. I will just take the clicker to put a slide. Sorry for that. Okay, I will do it without the slides. Sorry. So thank you for this important question. It was important for us, and that's why as well we have the second panel afterwards that we speak about the support and the incentives that we would provide to our client financial institutions to move together to this journey of Paris alignment. At AFD, it's not really a new thing for us, even if now we will roll out this Paris alignment assessment for all our financial institution operation, and for all of them we would have engaged in these discussions with our client FIs. We are already actually engaging with many of our clients on mainstreaming climate in their organizations. Actually, I wanted to take Egypt as an example because we are very active here with the financial sector. We just signed last week a new project which is called Finance in Common, and through that project we are encouraging 3 banks here in Egypt to move forward in their alignment process beside the funds that we are providing to fund SDG compatible investments, and for some of them climate action. We are also providing a technical assistance that is co-funded with the European Commission in order to look for action at the institution level for those banks to take more commitments on climate action, to start changing the way they're assessing their own clients, their own projects, and also integrating climate-related financial risks in their risk management processes. And why did I take that example? It's also because in this project we do not focus only on the work with financial institutions, but we also try to activate another lever which is acting on the regulation aspects. Our colleague from EIB mentioned the EU regulation, but of course at AFD, like 90% of our activities are outside the EU, in countries or regions where the regulations are not ready yet to incentivize financial institutions to move forward. So we are also engaging here in Egypt with the Central Bank of Egypt, and we do so in other regions and countries in order to also foster more incitative, inducive public policy regulation at the level of regulators and supervisors in the financial sector. And last but not least, at AFD, we also encourage peer-to-peer exchange and climate clubs, and that's why we are here under IDFC's pavilion, because we also think that it's not easy to move towards that journey, and it's even more difficult if we do it alone. So that's why we are also encouraging institutions to join collective initiatives like the mainstreaming initiative. We have our colleagues here heading the secretariat, making some advertisement, because we also believe that we could and our clients could learn a lot through those kind of clubs, and they have already done so, and we have the chance to have some of them here that who will be able to tell us more afterwards. And of course, as Alice mentioned, we are also trying to make our limited financial resources and make a very efficient use of our limited financial resources for technical assistance by developing tools like our e-trainings and MOOC in order to be able to display those materials to all of our clients. And I will stop there. Thank you.
Okay, as I said in my brief statement before, we don't want to make anything compulsory. So we don't believe in using the stick. Yeah, but we also say we don't want to use a carrot. Yeah, because carrot and stick are two extremes, and we don't think that we need to incentivize anyone by putting out, I don't know, a premium or I don't know, a couple of basis points on lending. But we believe it should be a self-interest that we can help mobilize. So we learned, for example, in South America or Latin America, that many of our partner banks have started to develop their own interest in green capital markets. Yeah, we didn't really go there and say, look, you get a carrot if you do a green bond. No, they developed their own interest, and now we have good partners to work on it. And I believe that we have the same situation when it comes to this, to Paris alignment, because there are countries where, say, the general discussion moves in that direction, and some banks recognize, yeah, it could be an advantage for us, or it could be because my government wants me to do it, yeah, which is also kind of an incentive. Yeah, so this is what we're looking for. And then if people have self-interest, then we are ready to cooperate, to transfer knowledge, to exchange, to learn together, and to provide TA.
Okay, I want to make 3 points, actually. First of all, we are there to encourage transparency, as I already mentioned, because we believe that what gets reported, and when metrics get introduced, very often then things get also managed proactively and brought closer to the core of the business strategies. So transparency, reporting, development of metrics, that's what we want to encourage. And I think the path framework builds very much on that. Secondly, we spoke already about the technical assistance, sharing best practice to really engage, not exclude, with the willing to help our partner banks to engage with the Paris agenda and build their own capacities to move along the low carbon pathway, if you may. But I think most importantly, we are trying to encourage the paradigm shift and move away from the thinking or that Paris alignment discussion is centering on compliance and exclusions and restrictions. I think it's important that we see it as banks start seeing it as a business opportunity and understanding that greening up their businesses makes actually financial and economic sense. And here really EIB is providing not only green financing products to our partner banks, but also, again, supporting them to develop their green businesses. For example, our so-called green checker, you can check it out. It's available digitally online. Helps the banks to assess the greenness of their SME business and business that they do with the small and medium-sized enterprises. And this kind of an online tool is quite sought after way and tool for our partner banks to start thinking about greening their activities, and with the further sort of more bespoken support, plug and play assistance for business development. So again, it's about transparency and reporting, building matrices that then encourage you to bring green closer to the core of the business. It's about capacity building, technical assistance, but moreover, it's about really the paradigm shift, starting to think that it's not about restricting and complying, but it is really a business opportunity for the financial institutions when they address more proactively the low carbon transition.
Well, thank you very much, Alina. Thank you, the three of you. I mean, there were some really interesting takeaways, I think, from this discussion in general and from what you just said. I mean, I noted the importance of engaging, not excluding, also supporting and sharing experience. Marine, you highlighted that. I know it's also very interesting to hear that it was very important to have partners that are interested and that they need to see it as a business opportunity rather than something that's been enforced on them. So I think now we're lucky enough to have 4 financial institutions that are interested in the subject and that are going to tell us a little bit more about what they've been doing. I'd like to thank you very much, again, the three of you. A very warm round of applause to you. Thank you. I understand that we have been joined by the CEO of Bancoldex, so I'll probably just, if everyone else doesn't mind, give him the floor first, and then we'll call up the 3 other panelists for the discussion. So, Mr. Javier Diaz, CEO of Bancoldex, I'll give you the floor. Do you want to? Have you got time to sit down and stay with us, or do you rather? I'm not quite sure how this is. You can sit down. You've got time to stay for the whole session. Great. Okay. So in that case, if you don't mind, I'll call everyone up first, and then I'll give you the microphone. Okay. Thank you. And then I'll take it in the order. And I'm sorry beforehand if I mispronounce any of your names, because some of them are. I'm not used to the language. So we have Mr. Esham El Safti, yes, Group Head, Financial Institution and International Financial Services for the National Bank of Egypt. We also have Pradana Murthy, I believe, Director of Risk Management for PT SME in Indonesia. We're also joined by Sarah Belhassen, And I'm afraid I believe I don't have your exact title, so maybe you can introduce yourself when you come up on stage. And I think I've called everybody up. So I can pass the floor over to you, sir, Mr. Javier Diaz, if you can give us some.
Thank you very much. My name is Javier Diaz. I represent Bancoldex. We are Colombia's business development bank. And I will be brief because I think that my co-panelists have very interesting things to say. So I would much rather listen to them than to myself. But basically, if you look up on the screen, or I can tell you about what we do, as a bank that supports small, micro, and medium enterprises, what we're focused on is on getting them to have best practices. So I guess the three pillars that you can see up on the screen start with business strategy, which is the business strategy of Bancoldex for ourselves, committed to sustainable development. And we are also developing the climate strategy for 2023 that is mandatory in Colombia. So for us as a development bank, we have to develop, and even if we didn't have to do it, it's at the core that we have to come up with a climate strategy development for ourselves and also for our clients. Second, we have targeted solutions, and this is very important because we work hand in hand with partner institutions. We work with multilateral development agencies, bilateral development agencies, and we try to the best we can to push a common agenda. So, for example, we work closely with, and we're part of the IGFC steering committee. We work with AFD, we work with KfW, GAF, IADB, etc. So targeted solutions and partnering is the second pillar on which we base pretty much everything that we do. And then third, we act as an instrument of public policy. And here we try and bring technical assistance and best practices to our clients, which again are micro, small, and medium enterprises. So I guess this is my introductory remark. At the heart of everything we do is sharing with our clients and furthering the Paris agenda. I also have to say that this is not easy. It's easy to put up on a screen. It's easy to say that we do it, but implementing is actually quite hard. Because as we were discussing previously, you never know how much to push, because if you push too much, then your clients react and then probably don't want to be as thorough as we want them to be. But then if you don't push, then everything just becomes too relaxed. So it's this middle ground that we have to find in terms of accomplishing something, which is not always easy. But again, I'll stop there and listen to my colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Diaz, for the very interesting introduction, and thank you again for being here as well. I'm just checking, is there an order in which we should be doing the presentations, or can we just take it from my left towards my right? Or PTI first, PTI SME first. Okay, I'll let you know. You can tell me along the way. Yes, because we've put the slides in one order, and I'm not quite sure what order that is. So I understand we'll be starting with you, Bamurti, if that's okay. If you could just give us a brief introduction of what you've been doing in terms of Paris alignment and where you stand in that journey, that would be great. Hopefully your slides are going to come up, and I'm going to pass you the microphone. Thank
you. Thank you, Ms. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Pradana Murthy. I'm from PTSMI. By the name of it, you can guess we are an infrastructure financing company. Yeah, but I think we are increasingly being evolved into a full-fledged development finance institutions in Indonesia as a national development bank. Next, please. I think here we would like to show what we have been doing in the climate actions space. We've been establishing a lot internally from the ESMF frameworks. I believe as per today, there are a team from KfW in our office in Jakarta to review our ESMF. So thank you for that. And then we've been establishing our sustainable finance divisions, that have been operating for quite some times now. The collaborations with other IFIs, we mentioned just one name here, AFD. But I think after IFD, there's KfW and EIB following suit. There's a lot of facilities, technical assistance that we have received. So thank you for that. Now, in terms of activity, our proactiveness in trying to align ourselves, with the global agenda, and how to actually mobilize the market. I think we are the first corporation to issue a local green bond in Indonesia to set the tone for the market. And then we are the first accredited entity by GCF in Southeast Asia. And then we have a strong focus on sectors that are huge potential in Indonesia, like geothermal. We collaborate with World Bank and the donors to unlock the geothermal exploration risks. And then in 2018, we established a blended finance platform called SDG Indonesia One. Next. This is just a show of what SDG Indonesia One has achieved so far. To be candid with you, not much really. As you see from the 3.2 billion that the pledges that we received so far, less than half translated into commitments, but even lesser than that is disbursed to projects. So it's showing that there's a lot of efforts, like you said, in trying to mobilize capital to green projects. And then next, this is also another slide that I'm trying to be candid with you. Our portfolio in green financing or climate-related financing is still relatively small to our size. We are a $8 billion company. To put that into perspective, our whole energy transitions investment costs will be around $1 trillion US. So we are very, very small in that perspective. But even in our portfolio, our climate-related project is still 11% at the moment. But it's growing. And vis-a-vis the coal power plant projects, it's steadily in decline. So I think we are trying to do something about that and trying to fix our portfolio of assets to align with the Paris agenda. Next, this is going forward. We've been assigned from our ministry as the country platform manager for energy transition mechanism, which is basically another blended finance platform. But to realize that the issue, the challenges in Indonesia is how to face down coal or to do something about coal transitions into something. So I think that is the main challenge that we have so far, to mobilize capital from public sector, MDBs, and private capital. And last but not least, next is our plan for next year. We are going to add to our activities, to our practice, is that we want to become as a research-based financing institutions. So we are establishing a SMI Institute that is going to operationalize next year. We're going to capitalize it. And that we are going to leverage it to invite capitals and to have collaboration with local universities as well as other international think tanks. To actually, our main target is the local government, municipalities, because we know that they are the first line of defense in the climate issue, and they have to be empowered. And it needs a lot of research and what they need and the facility that we can actually mobilize. So that is the next in our plan to actually going to be realized next year. I think that's in short about us. Thank you. Thank you very much for it.
Thank you very much, Pamurti. I think very, very nice to see. Was illustrating what the panel was saying earlier, that what's important is that you move forward and you keep moving forward, and interesting to see how you've been able to do it, considering the challenges you're facing in your own environment. Next, I think, I'm being told, is you, sir. So we're going to hear from you, Mr. Hisham El-Safti, and you can correct me, on your journey with mainstreaming and alignment with the Paris Agreement.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Okay, so let me start by saying that the journey of National Bank of Egypt started back in 1998 with a program called the Egyptian Pollution Abatement Program that was in conjunction with our European partners. And that program was started when climate change was not really mainstream, if you would. Obviously, National Bank of Egypt being what it is, and being a bank that dominates the Egyptian market with about 35% of market share, we intend to be leading climate change when it comes to regulations and what like. So how are we going to do that? I think we're going to build that based on four main pillars, if you would. The first one would be governance, and the governance structure within NBE to tackle climate change with the buy-in of management, and obviously we have that, otherwise I wouldn't be here, and as well as at the operational level. Secondly, we would look at external and internal strategic alignments, and with that we mean national legislations, central bank guidelines, and whatnot. Third, we need to build capacity building, or have capacity building within our management and staff, and we've already started working on initiatives such as today we have about 100 ambassadors within the bank leading the message to all our staff. Climate finance, adaptation and resilience, climate risk and operation management being part and parcel of our day-to-day operations, and then of course as importantly a very solid disclosure and reporting mechanism. So as far as alignment with the nationally determined contributions, it was mentioned, or it was announced by the Egyptian government that total mitigating finance requires $196 billion, and the adoption finance is approximately $50 billion. Next, please. So with our partners, IFD, we have started a 4-year journey in which we were provided a €1.5 million grant, which was in conjunction with a €100 million loan, in which National Bank of Egypt intends to do a transformation. This transformation has 5 expected deliverables: the climate finance strategy, environmental and social management systems, gender equality strategy, monitoring and evaluation, and communication and marketing. Next, please. So looking back, National Bank of Egypt has taken steps since 2008 to address climate change measures, and these were reflected. This was reflected in our first environmental footprint report, which was published a few days ago. I invite you to access our website, www.nbe.com.eg, and we have that report in there. And in the report, we have we have the measures mentioned here. So National Bank of Egypt introduced in 2008 thermal glass coating to improve energy performance and reduce heating and cooling needs. In 2011, we changed our cooling systems with more efficient systems with cost savings of approximately 12 million pounds a year. In 2013, we changed our lighting to LED lamps. In 2015, one of our branches in Upper Egypt introduced solar power, and since then we have been introducing more and more to our branches. And in 2020, we have piloted part of our employee bus fleet. We have changed it to compressed natural gas, and we have plans to expand that program. Also, National Bank of Egypt intends to reduce emissions by 30% by 2028, and obviously no bank works paperless at this stage, but we intend to use intend to reduce our paper use by 50% in 3 years. Next, please. So part of the transformation journey will obviously require disclosure and reporting, as I mentioned. And to this end, we have our first environmental footprint report. We have our first social impact report. And we have our second sustainability report recently issued. We're also planning to move to a more holistic and standardized sustainable finance disclosure system, and we will obviously be following regulator Central Bank of Egypt guidelines and governmental guidelines in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Very interesting also to see where you started and where you are today, and I think we'd all be very interested to read the different reports you've just been mentioning, and yeah, thank you very much for that. I'll pass it over to Sarah Belassen, and I'm sorry I still haven't got around to getting your name, so if I'll let you introduce yourself, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Belassen, I'm in charge of the Environmental and Climate Risks Directorate at Crédit Agricole du Maroc. I'll just start off by introducing Crédit Agricole du Maroc. So we are a state-owned bank that is invested with a public mission to support the agricultural sector and rural areas. So small farmers are the core of our concerns. So with regards to climate change and what we do, let me just say that given that we support the agriculture sector in rural areas, so that our portfolio is very much at risk, since agriculture accounts for more than 50% of our finances. In this regard, we actually tackle climate change from two sides. So basically the opportunities by proposing a bundle of offers in order to tackle adaptation and mitigation, such as drip irrigation, planting trees to fight erosion, as well as renewable energies, energy efficiency, waste management, and the list goes on. And then, so these offers, well, we came to realize, so I mean, they're good, right? But we need to encourage the clients to come forward and get interest in these offers, and how to do so. So we partnered with the AFD in this regard through a program, an innovative program that is called Istidama. So this program offers our client not only financing, but also technical assistance in order for them to optimize the production and consumption patterns, as well as a grant. This is with regards to the opportunities, and I only cited a few. And in regards to risks, so traditionally the climate was always a concern for us. So since we deal with agriculture, so we accounted for the climate component through an agricultural scoring system. But then we sensed the need to improve our approach. So we adopted a proactive approach in actually establishing and developing an environmental and social management system in order to identify the environmental and social impacts of the projects that we finance. So we initiated this system. We constantly try to improve it, and we're now actually, the system is ongoing a gap analysis, again with the support of our partner, the EFD, that generously supported us in this regard. And then we also tackle risks from the other side, which is the impact of climate change on the bank and the sectors that we finance. So we recently launched a project with the EIB in order to evaluate the opportunities and climate risks at Crédit Agricole du Maroc. So it's a project that tackles opportunities as well as transition and physical risks, as well as reporting. That's for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Yes, I think we also see that each one of your journeys is actually quite unique. But I think one of the things that came up was the fact that you all started off more or less with identifying climate as a risk to move towards identifying it more as an opportunity. And I guess that's probably the challenge that's being faced by lots of us. Actually, I think we have a little bit of time, which I wasn't expecting after all, but to take a few questions, which, I mean, we can take a few questions and see, yeah. So, Alice, is that okay? Yeah. Was there a second? I'm sorry. Oh, just a second. Sorry about that. Ah, c'était quoi? Je l'ai plus, je l'ai pas. Ah. Sorry. Yes, sorry about that. Alice has just made me note. I've forgotten a second question, which, because I believe one of my papers stayed over there. But there was a second question related to the support then you might be needing. That's why we've got some time left. The support you might be needing to move forward and the next with your journey on mainstreaming and aligning your institutions. Sorry about that. I have one of my papers that's missing. Should we start with you? Yes.
Thank you. So before I tackle the question, I would like to comment on something you gentlemen said. First of all, is our own loan portfolio is less than 10% aligned to the Paris Agreement. So I was unhappy and happy to hear your ratio, because it's pretty much the same for us. Even though we try very much, it's hard to build a green portfolio. And the other point I'd like to mention is regarding to the other gentleman is, we intend to be carbon neutral by 2024, Bancoldex per se. So we've been working at it hard, and I wish we could say 2023, but it's going to be 2024. We will have our own carbon neutrality. So what would we need to accelerate? I think, and I mentioned this earlier in a different panel, the whole crisis that we're facing globally is making funding very hard. We fund ourselves in the capital markets, so we get very little, if any, government support in terms of the national budget. So going out to market, issuing bonds, or just generally funding the bank's operations is proving extremely hard. In normal, quote-unquote, times, we would fund ourselves completely in the local market, which was very liquid in Colombia. But things have flipped. So now more than 50% of what we do is funded outside of Colombia, swapped into local currency. But even that is becoming hard as we move forward. So I guess to start answering the question, what we need more nowadays is access to capital markets, especially outside of Colombia. So issuing bonds, getting syndicated loans, and especially getting guarantees from multilateral development agencies and even from bilateral agencies is going to become crucial. We already did 2 loans in the past 18 months. We had a syndicated loan guaranteed by MIGA, and then a second version of that. That has mobilized $500 million US. And that's just to show you how far a guarantee will take you nowadays. So my best answer is we need more access to capital markets, or not more, I would say, to continue depending on the fact that we have access to international capital markets, and then technical assistance as well. as my colleagues were mentioning, it's not just about money. It's about getting the help and the grants and the know-how to actually further the Paris agenda in Bancoldex and with our clients. So I didn't want to miss the opportunity to say that I agree fully with everything that's been said, but it's just become harder over the past few months because of the energy crisis and the war and the post-COVID, if you will. I think everybody thought post-COVID was going to be everything goes back to normal, and it's proving quite the contrary. This is proving at like a third or a fourth stage of COVID, in which any normality, if at all, is going to take much longer to come around. So I think we face big challenges, and access to capital is crucial, capital with technical assistance. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take it in the same order if that's okay. So I'll pass it over to you, Mr. Morty. Yes.
Thank you, Claire. I think we are facing similar challenges with regards to funding. Yeah. Although perhaps we can actually trying to access also our government funding as well, because we have access to government. But in terms of currency mismatch, that's also something that we've been trying to look at, and together the discussions with Minister of Finance and the Bank of Indonesia, I think that will also help as well to be unlocked. But I think what we are seeing as already working on the ground, yeah, which is the blended finance. I think there's a huge potential in there, so long that we can actually structure it correctly. Because I think it's important to actually crowding in private capital, but how we actually be able to structure it in a way that allowing concessional funding, grants, to be in a certain tranches, but setting aside another tranches that is allowing commercial to actually go into the transaction. So what we are saying is not allowed true concessionalities comes into the projects. So we need to actually build that up. We certainly welcome what AFD has been doing with us with regards to creating a product called investment grant. So that is very much welcome. So we need that kind of tranches, yeah, that kind of concessional tranches, the grant tranches, to be able to crowd in private capital. And last but not least is SMI Institute. Yeah. We bring here also Mr. Kadek is our chief economist, is going to be leading the SMI Institute. He's also our Sherpa in IDFC. So I think that's important to empower SMI Institute to get this research-based activities going. The main purpose, the main target is the empowering the municipalities, the local governments, yeah, because that's where the action happens, yeah. Because we are in the decentralized governing system, so a lot of powers reside in the municipalities, in the local government. So we have to be able to engage with them correctly with all the facilities that we can provide, including research and programs design. Yeah. So I think that's probably what I can sum up. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So when I look back, we have partnered with many IFIs and DFIs, EIB, EBRD, CDB, and of course IFD. And I think the vast majority of the programs that we've been involved in have been quite successful. But the most successful programs are the ones that were not pre-designed, the ones that were not given to us and we were told, here, let's do this. It's the ones that were co-designed with National Bank of Egypt. So when we sit with a development partner and we design something, I mean, at the end of the day, what is the aim of getting one of these funding loans. It's to unlend it to our clients. So when we sit together, we design something that we know we can market to our clients. We know it will be used in an efficient manner. And this is the, and again, we're all human, so the first thing our clients ask us is, what's in it for me? So when we sit down and discuss investment, when we discuss grants, when we discuss technical assistance, this is what's in it for the clients. Just to make a long story short, co-designed programs are much more efficient than preset programs that are just handed to banks in developing countries. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can pass it straight over to Sarah. You'll be the last one to answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you. I completely share the views of my fellow panelists, and I'm just going to really stress on the co-design and creating a balanced ecosystem, and where there's an exchange and discussion of ideas. I mean, the banks, they know better the local economy and the local actors, right? And we act as facilitators for the IFIs or the MDBs for them to be able to finance the development. So basically, we are the link between these FIs and the end client, right? For example, for agricultural, I'm just going to go back to agricultural since we're an agricultural bank. One third of the food, the word food, is produced by smallholder farmers, right? Well, mind you, these smallholder farmers, they only get about 1.7% of the global climate finance. This is, I mean, you know, striking, right? So in order for us to be able to serve better these smallholder farmers, we need to sit together, work hand in hand, and it's actually a win-win situation for all the parties that are involved, right? In order to be able to secure concessional funding and as well as TAs, in order to encourage further these farmers or these end clients to invest in such innovative and climate-friendly projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of you. Well, I think that's very interesting again to see. I noted, and thank you for reminding us all of your important role of channeling climate finance and more broadly finance to the end client. I think we all realise that your role is extremely important, and I also noted the importance of co-designing projects, which I'm sure you all agreed with. And last but not least, I think we heard many of you stressing the importance of having adapted financial instruments, and I noted blended finance, but also risk instruments that you mentioned. I think one of them was currency risk you were mentioning. So thank you for that. I think that's very interesting and very comprehensive, and you all complemented each other really well. Actually, now, no, we only have 1 minute, so I'm afraid we won't be able to take any questions. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank AFD also for co-organizing this event with us, and IDFC for co-organizing and hosting this event tonight. So thank you very much. Thank you to the 4 of you for being here tonight, and thank you for the discussion.